Hi, welcome to Collected Stories. My name is Kyra,
I'm Dawn.
and today we are reviewing The Deep Sky by Yume Kitasei. And okay, so overall, I don't know your opinions of the book. We haven't talked about it at all since reading it. This is how we're first
We
talking
should do
about it.
thumbs up or thumbs down.
Okay, 3,
2,
2, 1.
1.
What? You didn't like it?
I knew you were gonna
Okay.
love it.
Overall, I give it a thumbs up.
Yeah.
It's her first published book. I liked it. I liked certain aspects of it, but I
Yes.
do rate it on like the medium to lower scale for me.
Yeah.
I would say it's like a 3.5.
I put 2.5.
Wow, going against the grain of the Goodreads. That's a brave journey.
Yeah. I went 3 on Goodreads because I just rounded up. Storygraph, once I fill all that out, it'll probably be a 2.5. Yeah.
So what tipped you over the edge into the thumbs down?
2 things.
Okay.
One was, it was horrible sci-fi.
It's actually not described as sci-fi. It's described as speculative fiction. I know it's marketed like that, but in the back of the book, when I was going through that, whatever. But yeah, continue.
As a sci-fi, it was really hard because like gravity. It's like sometimes there was gravity, sometimes there wasn't. There wasn't anything in the beginning to kind of explain the whole ship, just to give good world building, environment. Like the campus, when they were on campus, I didn't have a problem because I could visualize a campus. But spaceships, I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah.
There were other little things, the hard science of it all, and not enough explaining about it, and the world building of that part of it that really gave me a hard time. The second part was that it's really written. On Goodreads, it says it's adult reading. This really, really, really felt like YA to me.
Okay, I would agree with that aspect, especially with the age of the characters. I did not know that they were going to be that young. And it had a lot of teenage angst in it. And that's what I liked that, but it was YA.
Yeah.
It should have just been coded YA.
Yeah.
But to your first point, that was a lot of what I liked about it, was that it wasn't 100% sci-fi. It wasn't 100% murder mystery because there was so much else going on in the plot.
Yeah.
It straddled so many different genres and it didn't feel like it belonged to one. But that's what I liked about it, because the murder mystery, yes, it was important, but it wasn't the most important thing all of the time.
No. And I was fine with that.
Because it kind of went away from the formula of things too, I felt like.
I was fine that it wasn't like full on sci-fi. I just had a problem with the sci-fi part of it because it wasn't, I thought, done well. And even the YA part, like I read Firekeeper's Daughter, and that's YA. The characters are young, but it's done well. There's more depth, more, I don't know, adultness to it. Like it's not strictly just drama and wine. I did enjoy the second half of the book much better than the first half. I liked the ending when things started moving and going on.
Yeah, and I think this book was very much different than how it was marketed.
Yes.
And I don't say that with any critique to the author, but I think this book also just took off a bit more than it can chew. There were so many things going on that you couldn't really stop and think about the implications of one aspect of the story. There's the female friendship aspect, and what does it mean to be in a friendship with someone and grow with each other and have similar goals and go different ways in life, right? You can write a whole book just on that.
Yeah.
The mother and daughter relationship was a huge piece of the book.
Yes.
And how complicated that is. there's groups and organizations and cults and geopolitics, there's
Yes.
eugenics, there's culture, there's
Yes.
AI. And I almost was expecting to not know the murderer at the end of the story, because I thought, and this is where we're gonna maybe get into spoilers. We're getting
I
about
know.
the video, so we're gonna get into more specifics now. If you haven't read the end, log off and we'll pick up with you when you read it. But I almost expected and kind of wanted to not know who the murderer was, but have them fix the ship and then
Yeah.
almost have a second book come out and pick up where it left off and get more into the nitty gritty of like the whole, everything at whole. But I felt like it was too much for one book. It's a very ambitious accomplishment for less than 400 pages.
I agree. Totally agree. I also felt this is not a criticism of the author. It's a criticism of American English language. I have a hard time with the pronouns. Just because I was getting confused in the book. And again, it's not the author necessarily, it's the way we refer to people, the pronouns.
Yeah.
And, and when they say they, sometimes I got confused. Are they talking about they, the group, or they, the person? Because it was some of the people in the group that at the time identified as they. So again, another lovely English language add to the confusion thing.
Yeah, I feel like I picked up on that pretty quick. I didn't have, honestly, the confusion around it. I thought it was really done well, better with the character AM than any other character, because it was, the author just referred to them as AM all times. And
Yeah.
you can kind of pick up through their personality if they were masked, or if they were like, you picked up on the personality aspect of it, I felt like, as it went on. Did you see the murderer coming? Did you have guesses? At what point did you feel like you understood?
I had lots of guesses. Never guessed her.
Really?
No, never guessed her. I thought it was a few of the characters, but I really thought it was Alpha. I thought they were going to do it. I thought she was going to do a 2001 Space Odyssey kind of thing, where the computer is like whacked. Or I thought they were going to do the unreliable narrator thing, and she was like a sleeper. She didn't know she was doing all this, but she was doing it. So I did. I was thinking about it way too much, obviously.
Yeah, I really thought it was Ruth, her best friend.
Yeah, I loved Ruth's character.
Yeah, she does so much building of showing that Ruth can be such a best friend and, no pun intended, but ruthless.
Yes, and vicious. Yeah,
getting their friend kicked out over cheating, but she wasn't really like, they all cheated, but it was a matter of, getting herself into the program.
Yeah.
And if she's willing to rat out a friend, let her hang out to dry, what's to stop her from really, framing her girlfriend for murder?
Yeah.
That's what I thought was going on there. And then I did feel like I picked up on Gabriella when the stuff started to go down with Alpha, because she was a sneaky good at changing Dar.
Yeah.
And I thought that would come into play, but I also was more focused on the medical girl. She had such an angle to get out Becky, the old captain, with the eugenics stuff, which such a random, heavy piece of the story to have that wasn't fully explained or fleshed out. And I think maybe from the audiobook, since you didn't have the map in the book, that made things maybe more confusing, because in a ship where there's no universally accepted layout of a ship. But yeah, I think a lot of parts were confusing and not fully fleshed out. I think a lot of pieces you can write an entire book on the geopolitics of speculative fiction and everything, but there were so many different aspects to this book that kept getting tacked on that I just wasn't sure. It really could have been a series. It really could have been 800 pages if she really wanted to flesh it out.
It might have been actually
the marketing.
And I think also it might have actually ended up being a better book if it had been. She could have taken her time. She could have really developed the characters. So I think Asuka felt fairly one note to me. She was just very whiny. They were all, not all, many of them were very whiny. What really bothered me at one point was when they shut the door down, that all the crew just started whining about not having dar. Like, oh my God, how do I do without my dar? I get it, but this was one day after there was an explosion on the ship. The captain was killed along with three other people. The ship is now off course. And granted, maybe that was their way of voicing maybe that.
See, for the very same reasons, I think that's why it's realistic. They're teenage girls. They've never been in the real world.
I know. Why would you put a ship of teenage girls in space?
They are addicted to dar. Like, they have not seen the true reality of the situation. They can't even see the physical outlook of the ship. Yeah. And I felt like it was annoying at times to read, but annoying because you're supposed to be annoyed. You're supposed to be outraged. How are you not paying attention to the severity of the situation? Right. Yeah. That's how you feel. And I understand it's not like a pleasant feeling while reading it. And maybe not it was marketed to go there, but
that's a good point.
They're just young girls trying to navigate, and they have all this hope, and they've been given all of this agenda and all of this urgency from trillionaires and from countries and from the geopolitics of things. And you can see the weight of it crush some of these girls, and especially the main character who feels, she's Japanese and she's American, and she is just caught between all of these things, and she is annoying as a side thing, but she's a teenage girl who wasn't insufferable. And I think I don't know, I see why it was done like that. I think where they did go wrong with the marketing was not saying it was YA. Because I think maybe some of your annoyance is also coming from expecting it to be more adult. So the book kind of wraps up with this whole, it follows geopolitics throughout the whole book and kind of ends off with none of it really mattering because they are in space. They just have themselves and the people that they can trust. They've cut off, their communication is cut off from Earth, and they're saying that should just be enough. The hope that we are here, the hope that we might reach planet X, the hope that it might all mean something someday is enough.
And I also think like they were all doing this for Earth, and now they're cut off from Earth. Now they're going to have to come up with a new self-imposed mission, as also the hierarchy they talked about. And I think that, that will be interesting.
Or is it to send a lesson of don't? Because you just put all of this money into it and see it like bye. Which is pretty funny, and I think part of why the murderer did this in the first place, right? That's what her motivation was.
She wanted to go home.
She wanted to go home. And
I can understand that.
I can understand it, but I also wish the author dug deep more into the time aspect of like home no longer is there, even if you do make it back to Earth. Yeah, true. Okay, for our next month, for August, we are going to read Thistlefoot, mainly because I just like the name of the title. It is based on a fairy tale, Eastern European fairy tales kind of thing. It's a modern retelling. So join us. I mean, I'm not going to say much more because I don't know much more. Going in this one blind, which is not my usual. I usually research everything. That's your usual. Yes. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. So meet us at the end of the month and we'll review Thistlefoot. We have another video coming out in a couple weeks, but we will just review what we've been reading in general. I don't know what my mom has been reading, so it will be just a nice conversation. Bring your cup of tea and we will talk about our collected stories.